Welcome to Aligned AF, real talk for evolving souls with Yahweh Kent. Join Yahweh for honest conversations on spiritual growth, the messiness of life, and how to move through it all at a higher frequency. So grab a cup of tea and let's sail in. This is Aligned AF, and here's Yahweh.
There's a moment in every healing journey when we realize no one else can walk the path for us. Others can guide, inspire, or hold space. But the choice to heal, to awaken, to love ourselves unconditionally, that choice is always ours. It's both empowering and at times overwhelming. We want someone to fix us, yet the deeper truth is we were never broken. What we need is remembrance of our wholeness, of our own light. And in these moments of remembering, certain guides appear. They're not here to rescue us, but to reflect back what we already carry within. They remind us that the wound is not the ending, but the opening. That our power is not out there, but in here. These guides embody a quiet truth. Healing is not given, it is reclaimed. Today's episode invites us into the work of someone who's dedicated his life to that truth. Dr. Matt Turner doesn't fix people. He empowers them to remember their own capacity for healing. Through channeling, teaching, writing, and walking alongside both seekers and fellow healers, he's become a living reminder that our deepest medicine comes from within. This episode is You Were Never Broken, Empowering Healing by Dr. Matt Turner. Hey everybody, welcome back to Aligned AF, real talk for the evolving soul. I am Yahweh, your host with the most, and today's conversation feels like one of those sacred moments where soul paths cross with purpose. We're not just exploring ideas here today. We're stepping into the heart of what it means to heal, to remember our wholeness, and to walk the path of unconditional love. Dr. Matt Turner is a spiritual healer with a doctorate in metaphysical healing from Delphi University. He teaches you how to heal yourself with practical, tangible ways so that you can live your most empowered life. Dr. Matt believes healing is most effective when it comes from a realistic approach as opposed to an overly romanticized one. His job is to help you identify what is needed for healing and to give you a roadmap of what it looks like. Dr. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That was a great introduction.
Thank you very much. I worked hard on that.
It was like literally, I was like, "This is better. I could describe
I was
myself."
gonna say, who is this guy?
this.
Who is this guy he's talking
Right.
about?
Like I need those words.
Well, I'm really happy to be here for a lot of reasons. First of all, I know we've never actually met in real life, but you know my wife,
Mhm.
and I've followed you for quite a while. We've been friends on Facebook, and I really love the work that you do. I love the outlook you have on things, and I love the idea of bringing some testosterone to the show.
Right. I mean, the little bit that I got.
Well, I'm pretty balanced in my divine feminine, but
Right.
I've had all female guests so far, and
Mhm.
so I wanted to find some balance, and you're the lucky
Love
guy to
that.
stop me off. So,
I love that.
so why don't you take a minute and tell us a little bit more than what I said about you?
Yes, I've been doing my healing work for almost 16 years at this point. And it's something that, when I was a teenager, that's when I started seeing like psychics and healers. And they used to always tell me that I was in this life to be a healer, but I'm very stubborn. And so I didn't believe them because it wasn't my idea. So, it kind of took me about like a 5, 6 year healing journey, just, focusing on my own healing. That was kind of from 15 to 2021 before I could really see that myself and really, kind of claim that, which is then what led me to the healing school that I went to, and then been doing that work ever since. Like a lot of the reason that I like to approach healing from that, kind of self-healing perspective and more of like the practical, tangible way, because I remember a lot when I was a teenager and I was younger and working with healers. So often they would, like say all these things that like resonated and sounded amazing, and then talk about these things that I needed to do, to heal. But I'm such like a how person. I like steps. I like a process, right? Otherwise, like I will live so much in my mind, and it's going to stay this like conceptual thing. But like no one could ever tell me that.
Right.
And it really just used to piss me off. And
Yeah.
so then I was like, all right, cool. Guess I just will have this idea in my mind that sounds great and feels right. But like it's just going to live there. And so when I started doing my healing work, that's one thing I used to always tell spirit. And when I say spirit, I mean like, the universe, divine source, because channeling is really the thread that is woven in all of the work I do, no matter which offering type that it is.
Right.
And so I used to always tell spirit, like, I want to make sure that I can make healing practical and tangible. And I just want to teach people how to heal themselves. I come from a very codependent family, and I did a lot to heal that within my own self and my relationship with me. And it was really important to make sure that I didn't, kind of create these codependent relationships with my clients, especially telling them, I can heal you. Because I hear so many healers say, I can heal you, or I healed you. But we can't take responsibility for other people's healing. It's literally not possible for us to heal someone. Any healing that a person experiences with another healer is because that person was already ready for that healing to happen.
Yeah.
So whatever energy or wisdom that healer gave that person, it was just responding to that person, the client's readiness already. Right? Otherwise, no matter what I give to someone, if they're not ready to let that in, they're not going to do shit with it.
Right.
And that's also okay.
Yep. No, I agree. Now, it sounds like you're really focused on integrity in your work, which is
it's really important to me. And as for anyone who knows astrology and human design, I'm a Gemini, I'm a manifesting generator. So I can't do just one thing. I got a million offerings. I have a healing school. I write poetry, I channel poetry, I lead retreats. It's like I can't ever stop creating things to bring healing into the world. That's a lot, where my creativity lives and where my focus is. It's like the inspiration never stops. And I just have to, it's almost like I feel like I have to constantly get it out of me, but a lot of times I feel like I can't keep up with getting it out of me at the rate that it constantly is coming in.
right.
Which on one hand, I'm very grateful for, and I love it. And then there's other times when I'm just like, oh my God, do I have to keep creating something new all the damn time?
Right. It can be exhausting. It really can.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not following your own steps and using your own tools that you're helping other people guide through. Because one thing I've noticed in the community and as a practitioner myself, we quite often forget to use our own tools.
Yep.
And then can't figure out why the fuck we're exhausted all the time.
Right. Yeah. That's something that I used to try to be, really cognizant of. Because as a teenager, I moved to Kansas City when I was 15 from Georgia, where I spent the first half of my life, to live with my aunt and uncle. And they were kind of like the witchy ones in the family. Okay. And so they are the ones that introduced me to the spiritual metaphysical world. And all of their friends were healers and mediums and psychics. So, I was just constantly surrounded by those types of people. And they would always talk about how exhausted they were, how drained they were, how they took on this person's energy, how they maybe still had one client that day and now they're going to be out for a week. I mean, literally the way they would talk about it, I'm like, who the hell would want to do that?
Right.
I don't want to do that. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So, that made it kind of always be at the front of my mind to make sure that I'm always trying to maintain balance, that I'm not, overgiving, to make sure that I have really strong boundaries. And those are definitely not things that were super easy when I first started, actively, working with clients and doing my healing work, because I was also healing at the same time. It's one thing that so often people, because all my clients are healers in some form or another, right? So I have this conversation a lot where I literally was just having it with a client yesterday, where they say but I feel like that I have to get to a more healed state before I can help anyone. And my response is always, well, we can always help people from where we are. As we continue to heal and grow and transform, so too will our work, and so too will the types of clients and people that we align with that we're there to help. Yep. So, I kind of tried to always look at it as as long as I'm maintaining boundaries and balance, no matter how many things that I still feel like I have left to heal, as long as I'm like straight up about that and not presenting myself as perfection or I've got all my shit together or I'm done healing, then, for me, that feels an integrity. Because I've also learned, like, for me, it's almost like I learn through teaching others.
Yeah.
And I think it's because so much of what I teach others is channeled. So
Yep.
I'm also always observing what spirit is bringing through for people. And so I learn a lot from that. Like, so
Yep.
often people will ask me, like, can you recommend books that are about the things you've talked about? And I'm always like, no, because what I'm telling you about didn't come from books that I've read. It's either
Right.
come directly from teachers that I've had in my life or directly from spirit. Like, I haven't really read tons of books, around like healing and spirituality and metaphysics and all of that.
Yeah. You're getting it all straight from source.
Exactly.
Yep.
Which for me
Yep.
is
And
easier.
that's the most reliable and the one that most people have trouble with kind
Right.
of wrapping their head around sometimes.
Exactly.
Because if I've got a book in my hand written by, I don't know, Dr. Wayne Dyer or Matt Kahn or somebody like that, it's tangible and I can go back to it and I think to you automatically assume if someone's written a book, they've got integrity, they know what the fuck they're talking about. And that information came from the same place that the information you're giving them in a session came from. Yeah. So you mentioned that you kind of moved in with family that was in the witchy woo woo kind of thing. So you must have. I've experienced this myself with my first marriage. My then at the time wife's mother was a professional psychic, so they were doing the weekend psychic fairs at the malls and stuff like that. And that was a big deal back then. It wasn't the big productions like you get now with KC Metaphysical, or it was literally just a bunch of card tables set up in the center of a mall somewhere. But I spent a lot of time with those people. So my question for you is, because I experienced it, was you had to, with that kind of exposure, you had to have experienced those that are out of integrity, the charlatans, the ones who are just in it to make a buck and really don't have any integrity at all. How did that not turn you away from the whole idea of this type of journey?
Right. Like, I don't know that I've really thought about that exactly that way, but as you were asking that, the thing I was thinking about is I think because like I started like, this path, like, my spiritual metaphysical path at 15 at such a young age. And then, I was like 20, 21 when I finally was like, okay, I am a healer. I'm going to pursue that. I honestly like don't know that I had yet at that point noticed a whole lot that a lot of the people that I had been surrounded by, like, the healers and psychics and all those people, that they hadn't really been walking their talk. It honestly wasn't until after I went to the healing school that I did and started working with clients that I really started noticing it. So I don't know if it's because like just my perspective was different and I was seeing it differently at that point, right? Or if it's just like as more time played out, I got to see that more. But yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I guess life experience adds a lot to that kind of an assessment of things.
Right.
Because
once I did,
go ahead.
I was just saying, but once I did see it, like it was like became this big motivator to make sure that like I'm not becoming that person as much as I possibly can without then, overcorrecting and trying to make myself be this image of perfection.
Right. And once you see that, it's like a freaking neon sign every time you see it after that. Like you're immediately open to that energy of, okay, this person's not 100% in integrity. And so I'm just going to stay away from that. And that's also how I would encourage clients to say, look, if you don't resonate with me for any reason, there's no ego involved here. Walk away. It's all good, man. Because the resonation is more important than anything I've got to say to you.
Exactly.
If you're not connecting with it, then you're going to automatically see it as something that's just not quite right for you.
Right. Which is okay.
Yeah, it's perfectly okay because
we all speak different languages.
Exactly right. We all believe different things. And what I believe and what you believe may be different, but neither of them has to be wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah,
in my mind, as long as it's coming from a place of love and not causing harm, then like, why does it have to be wrong?
Right.
All
Right.
of our brains perceive differently and then use different language to communicate how it is that we're perceiving it.
Right. Exactly right. Now, you were saying you grew up in Georgia. Did you have any kind of connection with this in Georgia at all, or did it
Not
all
even a
happen
little
when
bit. I mean, I grew
really?
up, very much like Southern Baptist, like very much, Southern grandma who like made sure we were always at church. And I hate going to church. It was so boring. Because I do remember as a kid where I could see the contradictions, and I can remember as young as 5 years old, like all was ever thinking about is like, where did I come from? What happens when I die? What's
Yep.
my purpose in this life? Like, where was I before I came? Like, I thought of stuff like that all the time, but I didn't feel like I grew up in a family where it was safe to like ask those questions or communicate that. So I really
Yep.
just held it all in, which is also
Yep.
part of why at 15, when my aunt and uncle, showed me this more spiritual metaphysical path, I felt like I was finding the answers to my questions in a way that really connected and resonated with me. And so
Yep.
that's another reason, even at 15, like I took it so seriously. I mean, I can be playful, but like my default state is very serious. And
Yeah.
so it made sense that even at 15 I took something like that so serious. But I do remember like my grandma would occasionally like to watch like John Edwards, like when he was doing like the
Yeah.
mediumship show if it was on TV. I remember one time because she liked to read that I saw that she had a Sylvia Brown book.
Wow.
No, I didn't know tons about those things, or even how sometimes, those two worlds of, like more like Southern Baptist and metaphysics can sometimes be polarized, maybe is a word that I would use.
Yep.
I didn't really know that until after I started learning more about the spiritual metaphysical world once living with my aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really feel like, in a lot of ways, like it was always kind of there, like there were little like hints of things.
So, what types of spiritual practices do you have kind of on a daily method that keep you grounded?
Like once upon a time, like I would have said meditation kind of religiously, right? Like doing it constantly in terms of like sitting in meditation, going within, which of course I still do that like a good amount. But like now at this point in my life, like after over 20 years of my spiritual path, I try to think of it as like bringing meditation into everything that I do, as opposed to just having like a singular moment each day that I sit down and meditate. And
Yeah.
like one of the ways I always define meditation is being mindful and present in the moment.
Yep.
And that's always a thing that I've struggled with a lot and still kind of do. So it's like this thing that I have to like very consciously work at to always kind of, redirect my awareness back to the moment, back into my body, because I'm very much always out in the ether somewhere.
Yeah.
So like that's, kind of one of the main things at this point in my life, kind of like a new practice that, well, I don't know how new it is, but something I'm really trying to focus more on and seeing it as a spiritual practice is being in connection with people more, like outside of, clients and students, but in my own personal relationships. Because that's something that, like they're there and they've been there for a long time in terms of, like long-term friendships. But I do have a habit, or I don't know if it has to be like a habit, like it's, like a wrong thing, but I'm so purpose driven, and with, my work and my career being my purpose, I'm so focused on that all the time. And it just like, lights me up and it inspires me so much. But I also recognize that like I have to like kind of bring me out in the world more in my own just kind of personal self. So it's really kind of more about that, So I
Yeah.
guess like the answer to your question is very like non-traditional, non-typical, really more in kind of like a human way.
Yep.
Because I really always teach that like the eyes of the universe, spiritual and human are exactly like they're equal, right?
Yep.
One isn't better than the other. And so
Yeah.
many people in the spiritual world put spirit on this hierarchy above human, and in my opinion, that's missing the point.
Yeah. Yep. I love that you talked about bringing meditation into the everyday stuff. One of
Yeah.
my favorite things is when I do most of the shopping,
Hmm.
and so when I'm at the grocery store, I always choose the longer line.
Oh,
I don't go to self serve unless I'm like really in a hurry. But if I'm not in a hurry, I choose the
right.
longer line, and then I have a moment to myself. I do some observation. I might even have a really good conversation with somebody I've never met before. But to me, a
That's
moment of
awesome.
meditation, a moment of being present
Mm.
that I don't stress about. Like I used to freak out when people were counting out their pennies or writing a damn check or whatever it might
Right.
be, or not being able to figure out how to use the little machine,
Hmm.
and then price checks and things like that. And I can remember a time being in the back of the line going, "What the hell?" Open up another line. The rest of us are in a
Right.
hurry, and I just would be so irritated by the time I got to the car, and I got tired of living like that.
Hmm.
And so bringing into that meditation into the everyday has been a huge step for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my
So I
opinion,
don't.
it's like the mastery of meditation is that,
It is.
right?
Yeah, exactly right. When you're always in some sort of meditative state because you're
Mhm.
always present.
Right.
Yep.
It's what
Yeah,
I'm working
exactly.
towards. For now, it's constantly falling
Yeah.
out, but having awareness of that and constantly bringing myself back in. But,
Right, right.
eventually I'll exercise that muscle enough and it'll be strong enough to keep me there for even longer periods of time.
Sure. Now, when you mentioned stepping into your kind of outside the workplace world, you got
Hmm.
to remember, like, I mean, my opinion, you're a light, okay?
Thank
You're
you.
a special human being and a special spirit, and who do you think you are keeping that from the rest of us?
Okay.
Because we may not be your clients, but we still
Right.
want some of that.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
share that gift with the rest of us, man.
And let's be real, my Leo rising loves that. I know that's another thing I always have to remind myself. All right, man, you're here in this life to be seen, not to hide. And that's not
Right.
just in work, that's also out in the world in all the areas of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So do you have any rituals or mantras that you use on a daily basis, something that kind of supports your own healing in those
Right.
moments when you can detect that something's up?
My biggest thing that I always come back to is be love. I mean, it's even why, the name of my healing practice is Be Love Healing. The name of my healing school is Be Love Healing School. Because, like, ultimately, it's about that. I remember, like, when I was a senior in high school, I think I was like 17. And there was, like, one day, I'd literally just, oh my God, okay, I remember exactly when it was now. I don't know if you, like, remember this because I know, like, you're a little bit older than me, but, like,
A little
Zanga.
bit. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, you know Zanga.
Yeah.
So like I was like on there one day, and then around the same time, MySpace. So like those two, like I like one day was like trying to figure out like what's my tagline gonna be on my Zynga and my MySpace, and then I had just heard like the phrase "be love," and I was like, that's interesting. What the hell does that mean? And in that moment, at 17, I'm like, I don't really know what that means, but like I can kind of feel it. So I just did that. I put "be love," as like the tagline kind of headline thing on both of my profiles. And then after that moment, it's like I literally just kept hearing that phrase "be loved" over and over and over. Like I couldn't get it out of my mind to the point of in school, I would be doodling it all over my pages. Like I would like, sometimes when people like write their name on, like the bathroom stall, shit like that. I would always write "be loved," like, and I just kept doing that and putting it on everything. And so in a way, I was almost on this pursuit to figure out, like, what does that mean? So it's not about doing love or getting love or having love or giving love or receiving love. Like it's being love. Like what does that mean?
Right.
And then that kind of, just became like a big part of my own healing journey of looking at it as like, which, at that point I didn't quite get, but at this point now, of checking in with myself to say, like, am I being loved? Am how I'm being or how I'm showing up, whether just with myself or with others, is it in alignment with love or is it not? And so then it's kind of like my compass, I guess you could say, of like just always bringing myself back to love when I feel like I've fallen out of it. For
Right.
me, falling out of it looks like anytime in my fear, my wounds, limiting beliefs, judgments, insecurities, right? Like any of the things that people typically label as negative, which that's a whole other conversation. I don't really like to use negative and positive to describe energy. I usually either call it an expression of love or an expression of fear.
Okay.
Because the word negative has so many connotations for so many people, like it's bad and it's wrong, and that's just not the reality, right?
Right.
So that's why I like don't use those. So then, yeah, that's like the kind of place that I always bring myself back to. When I was 20, this was in 2015. Can't remember exactly how old I was then, however old I was. So 10 years ago, I guess, I was living in Asheville, North Carolina at the time. And at that point, like I be love is something that I'd started kind of hearing other people say and other people talk about and seeing it online. So I was like, okay, like this is a thing, but I still didn't feel like I really understood it yet in this kind of like lived experience way. And so also at that time in my life, I had been like coming to terms with that I struggled with binge eating. And I'd been doing that my whole life. And I've, always kind of had been thin. And so it never was this thing I think that stood out to people. Everyone's just always like, how can you eat so much and stay so little kind of thing. And so like, I didn't really know that binge eating was even a thing. And so like, I was at that point before I'd even moved to Asheville, just kind of focused on my healing. I'd been working on my binge eating and trying to, like stop doing that because it's like bad and wrong. I've got to stop, right? It's kind of how I was seeing it. So fast forward, 2015, I'm in Asheville, I'm in my apartment, I'm eating lunch. And at this point, I had gotten to a point where I could always recognize when I was in a binge. Like I knew what it felt like. I had like the compulsion energy, right? Like it would be there. I could feel it. So I had awareness of it. And at this point, I'd been like, I went to the healing school in 2009. So, I'd been channeling for quite a few years at that point and like had at least my connection with spirit was super strong. And so I'm like judging and wronging myself for binging. I'm beating myself up. And then I just heard spirit chime in and literally just in the most nonchalant way said, it's okay. Just let yourself binge. Well, that was pissed me off because I'm like, no, spirit, fuck off. Like, I can't keep like doing this. This is wrong. This is bad. I got to fix it kind of thing. And then again, in the most like casual tone, spirit just said, it's okay. Just let yourself binge. And I, just kept cussing spirit out about it because that was pissing me off. And then again, in the most like loving way, spirit just said, it's okay. Like allow yourself to binge and practice loving yourself while you binge. And then in that moment, I like literally was like, that's be love. Like that's what being loved looks like when I'm doing this thing that in my mind is so wrong or bad or needs to be fixed. And instead of like approaching myself from such like a shaming place, instead choosing to have like unconditional love for me, even when I'm in those spaces of maybe so I was like my faults, right?
Yeah.
Like so that like then helped me understand over the last 10 years that really like when I bring myself back to love, like that is like this alchemical thing that really heals and transmutes and transforms the energy of those pains and wounds and fears and traumas and all of the different variations and expressions of that. So that's a lot of how, I try to like work with it, even in my own healing and my own practice. But that's kind of like my daily mantra, the thing that I really just try to have is like my North Star.
Yeah. So many of us don't realize that just a thought, just a way of thinking can trigger these chemical reactions in our bodies
Yeah.
that can cause us physical harm, but can also create incredible healing.
Yeah.
And your beloved, when you're actually feeling that instead of just saying it over and over again, something happens inside you and actual, organs and synaptic connections start firing and it triggers these hormones that all of a sudden you're like, okay, I can take better care of myself and I can love myself through the whole process and it shifts things.
It
not
does.
just physically and emotionally, but spiritually.
Yeah, it does. So when I first started that practice, so then after that moment, I was like, okay, moving forward, my practice is now with the binge eating and with the food. When I notice that I'm in a binge and I'm starting to judge myself, I'm just going to keep redirecting back to having like unconditional love and compassion and empathy for myself. And so like that just kept being my practice, but I was doing it like, religiously, as they say, like so much every single meal. And then I remember this point like 6 months later where I noticed like one day I was like, oh, like I'm not even binging right now. And then I was thinking, I was like, when is the last time that I even binged? And it was like months before.
Wow.
So really just a couple of months of that practice, but it's like I was doing it so much, right? It literally just like it brought so much healing. Now, like, that kind of habitual piece of it, it still kind of shows up sometime because, at my core and the root in this life, food is the thing, that was always used as comfort.
Sure.
So, it's still kind of that default place that sometimes I still try to go back to, but happens a lot less often now. It's not so charged when it does arise now. I notice it more quickly and I can shift myself through it as opposed to it being so consuming the way that it once was.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, do you find that once you created that habit, do you automatically hold yourself in love even when you're just having a snack or having a regular breakfast or whatever it might be?
I would say like sometimes yes, sometimes not. I think it like I guess like the thing that I was just kind of thinking of like what's the difference is like days when I do feel more just in my heart and kind of present, like absolutely that's there. But days when I'm more in my mind, because I am like such a mind person. Like I always tell people, be love is not my thing because I've mastered it. Be love is my thing because it's here to be my reminder every day because I'm here in this life to learn it. And then I always like to teach what I learn, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like it really just kind of depends on the day. Um,
Right.
but I'm really hope by the end of this lifetime I will have found much better balance between my heart and mind because I also don't want to be so focused on the heart that I like discount my mind because there is so much power there and
Yep.
they do both matter. And so, I want to just find the way where they can be in a balanced relationship, but also where they're kind of like woven together, where they can work together.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have to have both.
Yeah.
You have to. You can't live with one and not the other. You just
Right.
can't.
Right. Like when people, so I have a lot of soapboxes in the spiritual metaphysical world. One of them is this idea of drop the ego, kill the ego bad, get rid of the ego. And I'm always like, no, we need the ego. It's part of the mind. It's part of our human expression. The
Yeah.
ego itself is not the problem.
Right.
It's when the ego is ruled by fear that is the problem. But ultimately, ascension is like not this like romanticized thing if we're going to float off to another planet like everyone thinks that it is. It's about the joining and merging of our mind and heart into oneness so that then our ego is ruled by our heart and by love as opposed to fear.
Well, that's a bummer. I want to go to another planet.
Well, your consciousness can incarnate to another planet, but it ain't the damn rapture where we're all going to float up out of our bodies and the clothes be left behind.
Oh
And
man,
instead
and
of going to
I had
heaven,
a
go to
ticket
another
for the next
planet.
one.
But I very much believe in other star systems and that our
Yeah.
consciousness reincarnates to other planets when that's what the need is there and we're in vibrational alignment with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a tough time seeing extraterrestrials as what we call aliens. I have a tough time seeing
Yeah.
that because to me it's just spirits in another physical manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
And the spirit is no different.
Yeah.
The spirit is just part of the original thought that originated with the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of my soapboxes is the
Yeah.
whole Big Bang thing, where it's not just a physical thing that created stars and planets and
Right.
asteroids and all that stuff, but it's actually also an intellectual, spiritual thing
Mm.
that the original consciousness kind of blew off into separate manifestations.
Yeah.
And
That's how I always think about it.
yeah, and for me, that's how we recognize like soulmates and star seeds and all that other stuff because
Yeah.
we we have these moments of recollection, the moments of familiarity
Yeah.
of something that started. I don't even know if it's 14 billion years ago or anymore,
Right.
because what was before that, as far as I'm concerned. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I have this theory of kind of like related to like the whole, idea of like reincarnating to other
Yeah.
planets and star systems. I've only shared this with literally maybe like 2 or 3 people.
And now you're going to
But
share it with whoever's listening.
yeah, because it's coming up right now and I'm feeling it. So
Yep.
we're
Yep.
going to go there. But I have this theory, like kind of just like this feeling that people that are born with Down syndrome are actually souls that have been like or from a different star system that is very heart based. And so like our physical body is a reflection of the consciousness that we bring into this lifetime when we're born. And so their consciousness is kind of shaped or looks a bit differently because they're from a different consciousness, a different star system. And so then coming into here, how that translates, it's so different, which is then why kind of, the chromosomal thing is different. Their bodies look different. But like, it's not that there's anything like, bad or wrong or thing to be fixed. It's more that they're just souls from other star systems where it's more heart focused that are coming here to kind of show us that. And maybe in some ways they're coming here to learn more balance too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I I will buy that, because if I think about anyone I've ever known, anyone I've ever met, anyone I've ever interacted with who has had downs, um, there is no one more
Yeah,
unconditionally loving than one of those folks, because
absolutely.
they literally are emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much love. Yeah,
Love that.
that's amazing, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, taking a look at your work, you said that you don't fix people, but you
Mm-hmm.
empower them to heal themselves. So, what does that look like in practice for you?
Yeah.
In working with someone?
So, a lot of like, regardless of the session type, because if you're on my website, you'll see so many options. Ultimately, it's all just different lenses to bring awareness. Like, I like to, which is a lot of why what I use channeling for and why I like to approach, my healing work using channeling, as opposed to being, like a therapist where maybe like that isn't there.
Right.
Because I feel like we can't do anything about what we don't know. So a
Yep.
lot of the work that I do is about like revealing things and helping people know and uncover and understand and get clarity about all the different things happening in their consciousness, whether that is things that are, out of alignment with love, like pains, wounds, traumas, unhealed parts, and purpose, gifts, talents, abilities, right? It's really about all of it. And then, kind of depending on maybe where they're at or their intention, then that really directs like how we approach it. Like, if it's more about like the healing that needs to happen, the pains, wounds, fears, traumas, all of that. We're going to uncover like, well, where is this coming from? What's it connected to? Why is it happening? But ultimately about going deeper. And I do go into like past lives a lot with people to really kind of help understand. You've done so much healing on this particular struggle in this life, but why is it still affecting me? Because the root potentially is not in this current life. The root potentially is from a previous life. So there's just deeper layers to go. So, it's one thing that I love about channeling is like spirit really helps me just kind of bring all that clarity and those pieces to people. And then I'm really good at just like, sometimes I say this and I always mean this, like in a good or way that I kind of see people and like their journeys as puzzles. So then, it's kind of now that we have all those pieces laid out in front of us, then I help people kind of put them together to come up with a plan of, okay, maybe we've identified that the reason that I struggle with relationships is because I have this abandonment wound, right? And then like maybe we've been able to look back to see this abandonment wound as something that like, I've lived lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime before ever even coming into this lifetime and experiencing it again. So then it's about, okay, well, what was the source of how that abandonment wound even started in whatever lifetime that it was? And so oftentimes, like maybe it's some subconscious form of self-punishment of something that happened in a previous lifetime that a person still feels guilty for, or like shame or wrongs themselves for, even if it's not their conscious mind as the personality of this life doing it now, it still has been done in their consciousness in the lifetimes before this one. So the imprints of that are still there as a part of them.
Hmm.
So then, one of the big tools I use a lot to talk to people about like of how to heal is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And so like I have this process because this is one of the things that just pissed me off a lot when I was a teenager and healers were like, you just got to forgive. I'm like, okay, but how? And they say, well, just forgive. I'm like, well, okay, well, I feel like I did that and shit didn't happen. So how?
Yeah.
And then, so one day I was like, all right, spirit, teach me like a tangible, practical way of doing forgiveness. And so there's this process called the forgiveness letter, is what I call it. It's just what spirit called it. And that's like, I teach it to so many people because it's such a powerful process, but it's really a way of like clearing energy, restoring connection back to the heart, and then coming into that place of like self-empathy and self-compassion, which is then where the forgiveness becomes possible. Because like one thing spirit taught me is a lot of times we try to go into forgiveness from the wound space, but for it to really be alchemical, we have to first get back into the heart space, which in the forgiveness letter, the process for that is gratitude, because that's the way of getting back to the heart that most people can connect with more than, a lot of other ways that you can get back to your heart.
Yep.
So that's why we use that one. And then that's where the forgiveness can actually be possible. But one of the things, like a little nuance that Spirit taught me around like forgiveness as kind of a healing tool, is that so often people try to focus on, forgiving another person or forgiving themselves, which ultimately I just tell people to focus on self-forgiveness because that's what's at the root. Of forgiving themselves for the thing that happened. But so often the thing that happened was not this intentional, malicious thing coming from that person to cause harm. It was totally a subconscious or unconscious pattern or reaction from maybe their own wounds or their own traumas, right? And if in those moments when that happens, if we chose to have compassion and empathy for ourselves, a wound would not be created or expanded and added to. If instead we had compassion, or if we judge, shame, wrong, and blame ourselves instead of having compassion and empathy, that's then what creates that experience as a wound. So then the self-forgiveness has to be focused on forgiving ourselves for judging, shaming, wronging, and blaming ourselves for the thing that happened, more than forgiving ourselves for doing the thing that happened. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It's like a little nuance, but it totally changes it and makes it actually work.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So now this forgiveness letter, is this literally a letter? Like,
Yeah,
you
like you
write
write a letter to
of
yourself.
forgiveness?
Yeah, and there's like steps, and it's for anyone listening that's curious about it. It's on my website under the blog section. There's a blog I have about like how to do forgiveness, and the steps are outlined in there. And then you burn the letter. And of course, if you feel like there's someone in your life that you need to do forgiveness around, you absolutely can do a forgiveness letter, writing it to them, because then you're just going to burn it. But I always tell people, like, if you feel like you need to do one for someone else, make sure that you also do one to yourself after that.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you can just bypass and go straight to the core of just doing it for yourself, that healing, that energy will ripple up to the surface, like, in whatever is there for you from that connection or relationship.
Right.
That needs forgiveness.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So for those listening that might feel kind of stuck in their healing, what's one small step they could take today to kind of reclaim their power?
Like, I would say, it's interesting because there's so many different ways I would answer that question because it's, so case by case thing. Yeah. But like the thing that came up whenever you just asked it in that moment, and so that's always what I go with, is to take a break.
Okay.
Because, so often, like, especially those of us that feel so drawn to really like a healing path in this lifetime in such an intentional way, sometimes like we focus on healing and healing and healing and healing. Then we get to this point of like, basically we are oversaturated.
Right.
But like at some point we have to like integrate the healing that we do. And so, taking a break from healing can then give us the opportunity to start really being more in integration of really putting it into practice. Because sometimes when we get to that point where maybe if we're feeling stuck in our healing, it can be a signal that, okay, we've healed to the point where we really can process right now. So now I need to pause from that and focus more on the integration piece. And then over time, that can reveal deeper layers to surface.
Yeah.
That's of course, there's other things. It could be see a different practitioner, try a different like healing path, right? Like there's so many things, but that's a piece that I feel like the taking the break, focus on the integration, come back to the healing later. That I feel like I don't see enough people doing that or approaching it from that way.
Right. And you can show examples of that in the real world, because there'll be times where you're working on a project for work or you're trying to get something specific accomplished at home, and you've reached a point of frustration because nothing seems to be going right. I can't get things to line up the right way. And the best thing you can do in that moment is to step back, take a break from it, and come back at it with fresh eyes in a little while. And that right there always seems to kind of reset you, so that you can look at it and go, wow, why was I having so much trouble with this before? Because now that I've reset, it seems pretty easy. And that same process works well in your own healing journey.
Right. It's even kind of similar to like, if we think of it from a more mental health perspective with trauma, like if someone is having like a trauma response, like in the moment, especially if, for that person, freeze is kind of the way that they typically approach it. And so then they're feeling kind of frozen and almost like they can't like do anything or process anything or move forward. If
Yeah.
you could like literally just like wherever you're sitting in that moment or standing, if you'll just like move your body that has nothing to do with trying to process the trauma or understand it, but just move it, then it's almost like you remove yourself from that kind of vortex of energy that you've been swirling in that's so heavy that they're feeling frozen in, and remove yourself out of that. And then it can free that energy up so much.
I want to get into the channeling a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I have my own ideas of
Mhm.
what channeling is and how channeling works and things like
Right.
that. So, first of all, how does it show up in one of your sessions? Like what role does it play and
Right.
how does it help a client?
Right.
And I
So
know
like,
it's different with every client, but
right, for sure, for sure.
yeah,
My first thing I always do, no matter like whether I'm doing like a psychic reading, which is almost like where I'm literally just channeling the whole time, or if I'm doing
yeah,
spiritual counseling or past life regression, like whatever offering it is that I'm doing, I am always in channel.
okay,
So that ultimately, it's about allowing spirit to be there to like show me how to help guide that person. Because at the end of the day, as healers, we can learn all the different techniques and the steps and the processes to do. But there's always going to be someone and something that like something's going on or something's happening that it's like, oh shit, I didn't learn how to do that in the class.
yeah,
What do I do? And for me, then it's like spirit is always there saying, okay, Matt, this is how you guide this person through this thing that you've never learned about before or that's never come up. And so, now it's been, like almost 16 years that I've been seeing clients. So I feel a lot more confident about that now. But in the beginning, I didn't. It literally was just like, okay, it's just like a shot in the dark.
yeah,
We're going to see where this goes. But like, whenever I allow spirit to kind of steer the ship in that way, it always like, gets them from where they need to be. So, like I that's why I always make sure that I get myself into channel before any person comes, no matter what the situation is, even if I'm teaching a class or leading a retreat, like whatever it is, even when I've officiated weddings, even then I get into channel because,
yeah,
there's only so much that I know and that I perceive. So I look at it as spirits always making sure there's no blind spots that I'm missing. And at the end of the day, like if I'm just using my own brain and perceiving, then I have my own language of how I communicate that,
yeah,
which then people may or may not understand that. But
right,
spirit will always give it to me how another person needs it for it to make sense to them more than it making sense to me.
right.
So, I like that because I want to be able to communicate with people in a way that it like really clicks for them, even if like to me it seems so new or I've never thought of it that way, which
Sure.
happens to me constantly.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so before you continue with that, I wanna touch on something because what you were talking about here is important to the conversation and probably to a lot of the listeners. The layperson hears the word channeling
Mm-hmm.
and thinks, "Oh, he's gonna bring in the spirit of my dead grandmother. He's gonna
Right. Yeah.
bring
Like
in."
mediumship.
Right, or he's going to bring in, we're going to get a message from Saint Germain or whatever it
Right.
might
Yeah.
be. And when you say get into channel, that's a different thing. And that brings me the image of stepping into a stream.
Yeah. It's
And
literally
the
a column of light is
yes,
literally like my process.
and that
Exactly.
resonates so strongly with me because
Mm-hmm.
um, for me, there's a truth stream
Mm-hmm.
and it's literally like a river
Yep.
and it's constantly flowing and everybody has a connection to it. So
Yeah.
when you step into the truth stream with somebody for somebody,
Yeah.
you're getting the truths that are supposed to be pertinent to them
Exactly.
versus allowing the spirit of Michael the archangel to come
Mm-hmm.
through and deliver
Right.
a message, which I've done too.
Right.
So how is getting into channel different than allowing another spirit to come
Right.
through?
So, like how I think of it as because when I get into channel, I always say I just go straight to the source. So,
Yeah,
like divine source energy, God, universe, spirit, right? Like when I say spirit, I'm talking about all of that. So, like for me, I think of all the other people, beings, guides, ascended masters, angels, all of that are under that umbrella, right?
yeah,
So, for some people, they have specific guides they like to channel, and that's totally fine. But for me, like, there's two things. Number one, I'm not good enough at multitasking to be keeping track of all that shit. I just do better going straight to the source, and the spirit can just tell me. And if there's a message from someone else or a spirit guide or a loved one for that person, then spirit will give me that, and then I'll relay that. Versus them always necessarily giving it to me directly, which does occasionally happen, but it's never like my kind of default intention of, where I'm trying to come from.
Right.
And then, oh, that's the other thing I was going to say. So then, like, sometimes people like, well, when they ask, who do you channel? That's how I always respond, that, I just go straight to the source. I, explain the umbrella thing, because like at the end of the day, like those loved ones that have crossed over, they are still a consciousness, they are still a soul. And although they're not in a human body anymore, they still have the thoughts, the emotions, the experiences, the memories, the pains, the traumas, they still have all of that. So their perspectives can potentially be tainted. Yeah. Not always, right? Some of them are in a place where they can come more from that heart space. The same thing with some spirit guides and, people like that. They're still like a consciousness, right? So like that's why I just like to go straight to spirit to get my information, because sometimes going to like other more specific guides, it's like playing the telephone game. The information starts to change a bit, and so then by the time it gets to me and then I'm relaying it, like I don't know, I just have never felt called to doing it that way. Ultimately, is what it boils down to.
Yeah, it's interesting that you were saying you just don't have the bandwidth to keep track of all that different.
I'm so bad at multitasking,
and that's great. And I had when I was doing regular channeling and actually like working with individual specific energies, I was running into the same problem where people would say, I was at an event where you channeled so and so, and do you remember them saying this? And I'm just like, okay, I believe you because I don't remember it. And so to look at that, I asked spirit to shift in how the communication goes, and I started writing everything down like as I channeled. So it actually got to the point where I could channel better, I could connect better to the truth stream or to the individual energy with a number 2 pencil in my hand and a legal pad in front of me. And it always had to be a number 2 pencil. I don't know why.
Right.
But I think it was more organic than using a pen or typing or whatever. But then that allowed me to isolate the individual energies and record them so that I didn't have to keep track of them later. And that worked out really well. I was telling you, I think when we talked separately, that I've got a bag full of channelings that are going to be a book someday.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did it that way, because to rechannel or to try to create a book just off the cuff like that, I never would have been able to do it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So I want to put you on the spot. Okay. I want to ask you if you'd be willing to do a short channeling session.
Okay.
Any way you see fit, whatever message wants to come through, whether it's related to me or to the listeners or to whatever's going on in the world, just kind of open up to it.
Got it. So I'll just set my attention to whatever spirit wants to bring through for whoever it's for, and then we'll see where we go. Okay, just give me like a second.
Yeah.
The first, and this doesn't feel like it's just for like one specific person, maybe more like collective. But like the first thing the spirit kept saying is, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. It's one of those things where, and I'm even actually like glad I'm hearing this right now, because I've been struggling with this a bit with just the chaos of the world right now. But like spirit just keeps saying that like things aren't as bad as they seem, or things aren't actually as bad as they look and appear. It's like there's so much that's coming to the surface. And, like, because I kind of, like, one thing I keep telling Michael is, like, oh, my God, I want to leave this country. I want to move. Like, I'm here to be a healer. I don't want to be a fighter. I don't want to have to fight the battle, live in a place like that. And so, even hearing spirit now talk about, like, it's not as bad as it seems, like, that feels very encouraging. And to really, focus on hanging on to hope more. Like, that, I don't know, that just feels like, I even just got chills. Like, that feels very, like, visceral, very intense. Okay, let's see where else we're going to go. That was the first one. And then, like for you specifically, Yahweh Spirit just showed me your heart chakra and said that in this lifetime, like a big part of focus in this lifetime for you is about heart healing, which is a lot about happening through the receiving of love as opposed to the giving of love. The receiving of love for you in this lifetime is about what heals, like all the stuff that was in your heart space when you were born into this lifetime that your consciousness already carried. So like spirit literally just keeps saying receive, 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 receive. It's like giving. The giving is already like that natural default state for you. But spirit, which is great, doesn't necessarily change or stop. But spirit just keeps saying receive, 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 receive.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that hits me hard
Yeah.
because, growing up in the 60s and 70s as a boy, and then a young man in the 80s, and having certain expectations that society puts upon you, and having the upbringing that I had, and being the man of the house at 9 years old, and always being trained that what you need doesn't come first.
Right.
It doesn't even come second or third. You have to put everything ahead of that, and that was a lesson that I accepted, but had a tough time getting through,
Right.
especially through a couple of marriages that ended in infidelity on the part of my wives. And so meeting Laura 10 years ago, being 53 years old and meeting a 30-year-old who was a yoga instructor and used to be a Chiefs cheerleader. And I was like, yeah, that ain't happening. But she fucking loved me anyway. And we've got this amazing little boy. And um, one of the hardest things for me in this relationship has been understanding that she could actually love me
Mhm.
for who I am,
Yeah.
and and never hurt me.
Mhm. Spirit
Never.
said, and she's got it to give.
Yeah, she sure
It's like you're
does.
not a burden because she's got it to give. It's like she doesn't do it
Yeah,
out of responsibility. She does it out of because there's like a surplus there to give.
yeah. Well, so thanks for that. I wasn't expecting that,
You're welcome. It's what you asked
and
for.
you suck. Okay. Um, Thank you for
You're
for
welcome, of
for that,
course.
and for the hope that you've allowed the world to listen to. And I think right now we all could use that hope with
Absolutely.
everything that's going on, not just in our country, but around the
Right.
world. Um, so getting into just real quick on your healing work, because you work not only with individuals but also with practitioners, and to me, it's always seemed to me in the community that we move through that the practitioners don't always get the help that they may need,
Yeah.
because they're so busy helping everybody else, or because they feel that they may not need it. So,
Right.
what is your message to healers and practitioners out there who are holding on to so much for others, but maybe not doing what they need to do for themselves?
The way that I always thought of it, like just, from my own perspective, with that same struggle, back in the day was that like it's it's almost like I had to manipulate myself into convincing myself. But like the way I saw it was that I cannot help people as well or as effectively unless I'm helping myself.
Yeah,
If I am not doing my own work, I do not have as great of a capacity to be of service. And, like I see too many healers, and not just like spiritual metaphysical kind, like therapists, like all the different types of healers, they just talk about how their work drains and exhausts them so much. But a lot of times it's because they're overgiving. Overgiving is coming from a wound space,
yeah,
right? So if you're overgiving, then you can know that there is some healing work to do, right? at a minimum around that. And it could be having threats to so many other, things in a person's consciousness as well. And so,
Sure.
like for me, it just always like the thing that empowered and inspired me to really continue to make me a priority and my healing a priority was reminding myself that that's how I can ultimately best be of service in the world in the most effective and the most efficient way. Because I have very strong boundaries, and all my clients know, all my friends know. I will not say yes to you, and I will not give to you if I don't have the space or if it's crossing a boundary that I have. And I am very comfortable saying no to someone.
And that's such a healthy attitude that so many people see as selfish and standoffish.
Yeah.
And first of all, fuck them because I don't really care.
Right.
But I mean, coming from the background that I come from, it was a tough lesson for me to learn to be that
Mhm.
way, to have those boundaries, and to be
Right.
able to say no and not feel guilty as hell about it.
Hmm.
But then also to maintain that boundary when somebody comes back at me with the guilt. Well,
Hmm.
what do you mean you won't help me? Or,
Yeah.
why is it always about you or whatever it might be? And well, you know what? It's always about you too. It's always about
Right.
each of us has to spend time in what's about me in order to be any good whatsoever to
Yeah.
someone else.
Right. Like sometimes I've had clients, like try to reach out in this emergency state. Like, I need you right now. And then I'm like, well, I'm not available. So I believe in you that you have what it takes to work through it. And if it's some dire, like emergency, like harm type thing, I may say, like, call this number, right? Like, here's some resources. But like, I don't allow like, people's, I guess, pain to guilt me into crossing my own boundaries in
Yeah.
order to help them or be of service. Because, like, at the end of the day, that can create so much codependency and it disempowers the person.
Yeah.
Like, I like to always remind people, like, I believe in you. You got this. I know you can do this because they have to be empowered to recognize they can do it on their own.
Yeah.
I watched too much growing up the way that my grandmother like overgave and was the hero and the rescuer and the fixer and the everything. And I like literally watched the way it ate her alive.
Yeah.
And then I like her children, which is my father, my aunt, and my uncle. Like actually one of them was a teenager, which he ended up committing suicide in 2008. Like I watched the way the level of codependency that they all had with her, and then if something happened in life where she wasn't there to save them, to where literally they're these adult children being clueless of what to do or how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And so that was a big like motivator and like catalyst for my own healing around the codependency and the people pleasing, and really trying to work that out and heal that so that I'm not that person, because I also was most like my grandmother in my family. And like that is the inspiration when it comes to clients too, because it's like I know that if I am always too available for them, then that creates this codependency, and ultimately at the end of the day it just disempowers people. And
Yeah.
like a big like part of my messaging, like one of the offerings that I do is like about like owning your power. Like I had this lady ask me several years ago, what was the thing that I really wanted for the world the most? And when I like just kind of sat with that, like it was just I just want everyone to know how powerful they are. And for me, like in kind of being that reminder and teaching people that like they are more than powerful enough, like that I can't do that if I'm always like crossing my own boundaries to be available for people on their terms. Like I always tell people, I'm available for you on my terms. If that works for you, great. If not, that's also okay. That just
Yep.
means we're not in alignment. Or sometimes I've had people be like, oh, I really want to come see you, but like I can't afford you. And so then I always say, like, that's totally valid and understandable. Absolutely get that. You know where to find me if that ever changes.
Right.
Right? Like, so, I still always approach people in situations like that with compassion and empathy, because I'm not going to judge them or shame them or wrong them. But I'm also, like, I'm very much a tough love kind of person, but I can
Okay.
still do it in a way that, like, is a mix of kind of gentleness with directness at the same time.
Right. And you keep the ball in their court because that's where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Matt, this has been a great conversation. I think we
Thank
could
you.
probably continue for a few more hours. Maybe we'll have
Easily.
we'll have to have other episodes.
Right.
I would love to do one just specifically on channeling
Hmm.
and just really kind of kick that up a notch.
Yeah, we could
Except
totally get into that
I
one.
might have to have you leave me out of it because
I know sometimes when people are like, "Can you do me? Do me?" And I'm like, "Are you sure?"
yeah,
Especially if
yeah.
other people are around.
Careful
Because
what you
like for
ask for.
me, like I so much of like the like my channeling isn't just like let's talk to your spirit guides or let's do this. It's so much about like healing because like
Yeah,
ultimately that's why I don't say I'm a psychic. I say I am a healer, and then these are some of the things I do within that, and I use these abilities, which by the way I believe everyone can channel and everyone is psychic. It's just a matter
sure.
of you tapped into it and trusting it, right?
Yep, exactly.
So I use it for healing. So sometimes like I think that people have in their minds like maybe what like that normally looks like. Yeah, you're just maybe gonna tell me some like fun things, but then I'm always like, are you sure?
Yeah, it's
Because
not always
spirit's gonna go
fun.
deep into your soul, and we're gonna
Yeah,
be looking at some shit.
yeah,
Because that's how I use it, right? That's the way that I feel called to do this work.
yeah. No, I hear you. I used to do. You mentioned John Edwards. I used to actually do gallery readings back in Massachusetts
Oh
before I came out
yeah,
here, and
that's
there were times where I would come to someone and they'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I want to hear it," and I was like, "Do you have a designated driver?" Because
are you sure?
I can't promise you what this is going to be like. It's
Right.
one thing I was always dead set on was whatever comes out of me is going to be exactly what comes out of me. That's
Exactly.
that's the only way I can direct it.
Yep.
Other than that, it's just coming,
Hmm.
and it may make sense to you today. It may make sense to you tomorrow. It may not make sense to you for a year and a half, but it's the message that you're getting. And
Absolutely.
it's not always fun,
Right.
but it is always important and it is always
Yeah.
healing.
Exactly. And that's what
Yeah.
matters. That
Yeah.
it's
All right, sir. Well, I would like to give you the opportunity to share with us anything you'd like to share, whether it's talk about your book or share your website. All of this will be in the show notes for the folks that
right.
are listening or watching on YouTube. But please, take a few minutes and just let us know what you'd like. Anything coming up, any events or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, like I would say I do have so like my healing school, because obviously I've mentioned that like quite a few times. I train other healers in channeling and energy processing, past life regression therapy, energy work. I have a couple other teachers too that teach my curriculums and certifications and all of that. And you can go through the whole curriculum, you can go through just part of it. But like channeling at a minimum in my opinion is for every type of healer, which I define the word healer as just people being of service. So like sometimes it's doctors or physicians or therapists or teachers or artists that are like coming through the healing school and learning how to channel, not only just psychics and mediums and energy workers, right, and witches. It's really all of those people, because anyone can add channeling to their healing practice if it isn't already there. And so, like I really put a lot of focus on that. So anyone that feels that call to be of service to others, or even if it's just about using channeling for your own self and your own life, because that's possible too, um, come check us out at the Be Love Healing School on my website, belovehealings.com. Like you always said, it'll be in the show notes. There's information, on all of it there. I am working. I took a pause from retreats this year. It's one of the things people, like, are always one of my favorites that people love. But I will have another retreat coming fall 2026. So there'll be information hopefully the next month or two on my website about that.
Okay.
I do these like fun things called soul poems, where I channel a poem about your soul. And so, basically you just like click the link and purchase it on my website. I get the email about it. And then just, it's not like a live in person thing. And then I channel the poem and then I send it to them. But really, just kind of having that reminder of who you are in the core of your soul, so that when life gets overwhelming or hectic or consuming, that if maybe you use that as a reminder and read it to yourself, being this thing that can kind of pull you out of your funk, because we all need those reminders at the end of the day. And then of course, if anyone is feel like they need any assistance on your healing path and you feel called to work with me, you'll see lots of different offerings on the healing sessions tab on my website. Like when people ask like where should I start, I usually always say either a psychic reading or spiritual counseling. Those are great places to start, and then we can kind of unpack what's there and identify some stuff and come up with a plan and then go from there.
You have a book?
Yeah, I do have a poetry book that I
Okay.
wrote, and someday I'll have more books too. But for now, like it's just a collection of poems that I've written. Let's see, I'm 38 now, so over the last like 18 years or so. But they're all about like healing, spirituality, metaphysical terms, pain. Some of them are really, kind of towards the beginning of my healing journey. Some of them have been channeled. Some of them are just from me. It's really just kind of a mixture of that. It's called Courageous Light, Musings of a Healer, and that's also on my website. It's a cute little poetry book, and it will stir you because that's how I created it.
It's available on your website. Is it also available on
Yeah,
Amazon and stuff like that?
it is available on Amazon. Yeah.
Great. It
Mhm.
is available on Kindle.
No, it's not on Kindle.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right. And you haven't done an
At least
Audible
not for
one?
now. Nope,
Okay. All right.
not yet. When I
Yeah.
have like an actual book, like I will. It's funny too because I always think about like someday when I write more books, I feel like I need to do my own. Like if they're like audibles, I need to do it myself.
Yeah. 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 Because the
But we'll
energy
see.
is there. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
hear
like
you.
that's part of the transmission.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. You'll be the new Paul Selig or the new Daryl channeling Bashar, right? Except you're going to be channeling Matt Turner.
Yeah, channel exactly.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
up.
of course.
I really
Enjoyed it.
appreciate it. Yeah, so did I. Dr. Matt Turner, thank you
You're
for
welcome.
bringing your heart, your wisdom, and your presence to this space. Conversations like this remind me that um, healing isn't about perfection. It's about remembering, reclaiming, and choosing love again and again. For those listening today, may you carry forward even just one insight from today into your own life, trusting that you already hold the key to your own healing. And remember, you're getting closer to aligned AF every single day. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. If this episode spoke to you at all, share it with a friend or someone who needs it. You can also leave a review or connect with me online. You can find Aligned AF on YouTube, Facebook, your favorite podcast channel, or at alignedaf.org. And if you want to reach out directly, you can email me at alignedafpodcast@gmail.com. So until next time, stay aligned AF.